Well, when you think about just the suffering of the American people under the COVID mandates, obviously the school closures, what we've seen happen to children, almost forced vaccinations to go to school, people to work. So many people now are telling me, I wish I had listened to voices, in the media or doctors who are telling me not to do it, but I had to work. It breaks my heart when I hear people say that, and I know they say that to you every day.
Yeah, and that is heartbreaking because the public health authorities knew from the beginning that the vaccine did not do what they said it was going to do. They knew, we now have the Pfizer data, and the Pfizer data, they show that it did not prevent transmission, that and it wasn't even very good at preventing death. There was one COVID death in the vaccine group and 2 in the placebo group. So, it took them 22,000 vaccines to prevent 1 death. And if you're going to give 22,000 vaccines to prevent 1 COVID death, you better make sure the vaccine is safe and the vaccine is not killing people. But in Pfizer's clinical trial, the vaccine group had a 23% greater death rate from all causes than in the placebo group. It was a product that should have never been approved, much less mandated. And they were mandating it to people who did not need the vaccine, to children. There was essentially 0 healthy children who died in this country from COVID. Why were we giving them vaccinations that don't prevent transmission? The Israeli data came out because of a lawsuit today. And that data showed that in Israel, not a single person under the age of 50 died of COVID. So,
unbelievable.
What we're learning today, what we're confirming today, should be a warning to Americans to not ever let this happen again.
Yeah, but do you believe there will be an attempt by the World Health Organization and others who support it, vociferously support it, Bill Gates and others, that there will be an effort to globalize rules of...
Well, those efforts are already being made, but I'm not as worried about the WHO as I am about our own government, because we've now established a precedent in this country. They suspended the First Amendment, religion, freedom of association when they did the lockdowns, freedom of speech. They banned jury trials against vaccine companies. That's the Seventh Amendment. They abolished property rights. The Fifth Amendment, they closed 3.3 million businesses with no due process, no just compensation. Although there was no pandemic exception in the United States Constitution, and those kind of emergencies have never in history been used to justify the suspension of the Bill of Rights, but now they are. So now we have this very, very ugly precedent, Laura, where the government has withdrawn those mandates now, but they have not said we're never going to do it again. And there's a whole pipeline of new emergencies, whether it's terrorism or all these new diseases. And now at any time they want, they can say, oh, it's an emergency. The Constitution is now suspended. And that is a really ugly precedent. I think whoever the next president of the United States is, they need to get in there and address that problem and say, we're not... Listen, during the Civil War, Confederate forces were sending agent provocateurs to the northern cities to incite riots, draft riots, and it was devastating northern morale. And Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus so that he could arrest those people before they started causing trouble. The Supreme Court Chief Justice Roger Taney said at that time, you can't do it. It doesn't matter. And in the Civil War, 659,000 Americans were killed on both sides. That's the equivalent of 7.2 million today. So it was a much worse emergency than COVID. Our country came this close to being destroyed. And yet the judges said it doesn't matter. The Constitution is more important than the country, than anything else. The Constitution was written for hard times. And we need to restore that there's no excuse for suspending our Constitution. There certainly is not a pandemic exception in the Constitution.